If you're watching what's happening at our southern border, you might be pretty confused about what's happening, why it's happening, how usual or unusual it is, and what exactly constitutes a crisis. The U.S. border is closed.
We're focused on mission, and that is securing the border, and the border is secure. The border is closed. The border is secure. The border is closed. We've been unequivocal in that. The message is quite clear. Do not come. The border is closed. The border is secure.
Reporters, like my colleague Jacob Soboroff, have been to the border and reported this out. But under the Biden administration, migrant children are being allowed through. The why are they coming, is much more complicated. Most reports show migrants fleeing poverty, violence, natural disasters in their home countries. Some come to reunite with family members. This video, taken Friday, shows dozens of migrants after they crossed the Rio Grande River on rafts, waiting to apply for asylum in Texas. To be clear, there is an increase of migrants at the border. Last month, on average, border agents encountered around 3,500 migrants per day. This past Friday, 5,500 migrants were encountered at the southern border, according to internal data from Customs and Border Patrol, tamed by NBC News. 2,000 were families, around 200 were expelled, the rest allowed to stay in the U.S. to await their court dates. Of the 2,800 single adults encountered Friday, nearly 2,200 were denied entry. There is, of course, lots of finger pointing around the increase.
This crisis is created by the presidential policies of this new administration. There's no other way to claim it than a Biden border crisis.
Texas is willing to step up and help out, but this is the Biden's administration responsibility.
I'm very concerned that the administration's rhetoric and policies are encouraging more to attempt this dangerous journey.
Our message has been straightforward and simple. And it's true. The border is closed. We are expelling families. We are expelling single adults. And we've made a decision that we will not expel young, vulnerable children. I think we are executing on our plans. And quite frankly, when we are finished doing so, the American public will look back on this and say we secured our border and we upheld our values and our principles as a nation.
You see, as Reuters explains, Republicans argue Biden has encouraged illegal immigration by rolling back Trump's policies. But border arrests have been gradually rising since a sharp decline in April 2020, as countries shut borders due to the pandemic. Again, these increases are not new. Look at the data. Back in 2014, do you see that line? Under Obama, and then in 2019, just a little bit over to the right, under Trump, there were similar spikes. A side note, I take issue with a lot of the language that's being thrown around to describe this situation, even by people who don't intend to be inflammatory or inaccurate. So I won't be using words like surge or wave to describe the situation, because I never want to forget that what we are really talking about is people. We are talking about people for whom home has become so dangerous or so untenable as a question of basic survival that they have decided to travel thousands of miles in the hopes that America will provide refuge and relief. This all brings us to the big question: is this a crisis? Kids showing up at a border without capacity to house and place them swiftly with existing family? Yes, that is a humanitarian crisis. And let's not forget about Mexico, too, where living in a shelter is a way of life, as recently reported by my colleague, Gabe Gutierrez.
Youngest children, it's all they know, an agonizing wait for asylum. We're desperate, Janine Torres tells us. As a mother, we want the best for our kids. At this shelter in Matamoros, Mexico, she and other mothers allowed us to film their families. Right now, there are about 80 or so migrants in this shelter. Some have been waiting for asylum for more than a year, and they tell me they feel like they're in immigration limbo.
Yes, that too is a humanitarian crisis. But instead of focusing on those migrants and how we help them, the problem is that the word crisis gets weaponized to make Americans believe that they have something to fear, that they have something to lose. That's how we end up with big, beautiful walls that don't work, It's how we end up distracted from the real people, the real things that threaten our safety and our security. Joining me now, Erica Andiola, Chief Advocacy Officer at Raices, Jess Morales-Roquetto, Chair of Families Belong Together. She's also Director of Civic Engagement for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Jess, President Biden just moments ago returning to the White House from Camp David was asked if he plans to visit the border. Take a listen.
Are you thinking of going to the border?
At some point I will, yes.
Do you want to see firsthand what's going on in those facilities?
I know what's going on in those facilities.
Just, I have to say, it does seem that when lawmakers go to the border, this takes on a different sense of passion, of urgency. How soon do you believe the president needs to head down there? And what message will it send that the administration is prioritizing that trip?
You know, the Biden administration has already sent officials down there, which I think was really smart. They reported directly back to the president. I do think it's important for the president and vice president to go down there to see what's really happening. We have seen this happen in 2018 and in 2014. And this is especially important because Republicans are going down to the border right now, and they're using their bully pulpit to spread complete misinformation and lies about what's happening. We need moral leadership from President Biden, from Vice President Harris, to make sure that we talk about the truth of what is happening right now, which is absolutely different from what Republicans are trying to pretend is the situation at the border.
So, Jess, tease that out for me. When you talk about the misinformation that you're hearing, because I think it is really important that people understand and are able to sort and sift through it for themselves. What is the misinformation and what is the truth of what we're watching at the southern border?
I would say that we are in a challenge right now. Republicans are calling it a surge, they're calling it a crisis. I would say this is a challenging time in our country's history. But the number one most important thing to know about this is because of the backlog created by President Trump and Stephen Miller and their evil immigration policies. We are cleaning up that backlog now, and we are seeing some more children. It's getting warm outside. I don't know if you've noticed. And so everybody wants to get outside. And of course, I think after 4 years of such terrible, evil policies, it doesn't surprise me that people are thinking about whether or not they could make a long denied journey to the United States. And so it's very important for us to know all of that. It's hurricane season in Central America. That's also why people are coming here. So all of this is incredibly logical, easily explained, and based in facts, unlike what Republicans are doing, which is playing to people's fears and playing to people's racism. They're, in fact, following the Trump playbook. And what we saw over the last 4 years with the Trump immigration playbook is that it was all about fear. It was all about the worst parts of our government and our system. We can't go back to that in any policy, and especially in Trump's signature immigration policy.
Erica, I want to play sound from Secretary Mayorkas on Fox this morning. Take a listen.
Are you suggesting that every minor, the thousands and thousands of minors coming across this country, has a legitimate asylum claim, and that a lot of them aren't just coming across the border because they want to have a better life here, which is understandable, but isn't necessarily our responsibility?
We are encouraging families not to send their children along the dangerous journey because so many do not make it safely. We are encouraging them not to do so. Yet, if they arrive at the border, we have a responsibility to allow them to make their claims under United States law and to address these are vulnerable children.
Erica, you have been leading on this issue as long as I have known you. You have been out in front during the Obama years, during the Trump years, now during the Biden years, and that is because this is lived. This is personal for you. What should lawmakers understand about what their responsibility is when it comes to these people who are seeking asylum at our border?
Well, first of all, we have to go back to some of the things that you were saying, Alicia, of the humanity, right? When you talk about a crisis, people are going to hear different context to the word, right? Some people are going to hear crisis and they're going to think, oh my God, we're getting invaded. I mean, sort of the Fox, rhetoric that usually happens. Some people are going to wonder, what is going on with the children. And so there's a lot that people might think of, right? To me, I think about the human beings that are crossing the border and the children who are crossing the border. I was one of them. I was 11 years old when my mom with my 2-year-old brother, my little brother. We were crossing the border. We tried 3 times. We were arrested by the Border Patrol. And trust me, it is absolutely scary. It is so scary to do that. But we did it because we needed to find a place where we could be safe. And we needed to find a place where we could find a home. And that's what we decided to do. And I see that in a lot of the children that we see, you know, at Raíces. When we do legal intakes, when we talk to them, when we try to figure out where they're from, why they're leaving, and we realize that it's not just about the sort of the pooling factors, right? It's not just about the U.S. Seeming like a really beautiful place to come, but also the reasons why they're leaving is very important for us to talk about. And it needs to be noted, right? And politicians need to talk about that as well, not just the reasons why they're coming, but why are they leaving, and what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to become a welcoming country that we should be.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.